Sigma ladies, today we're uncovering something that sends shockwaves through every relationship, every interaction, every environment. The moment a Sigma female stops following the unspoken rules imposed on her and starts rewriting them. For too long, she has been the silent observer, the quiet powerhouse, the underestimated force. She has played along, not out of weakness, but out of choice. She knew that sometimes it was easier to let others believe they were in control, but the moment she decides to change the game, the entire board shifts. What happens when a Sigma female decides she's done playing by everyone else's expectations? When she steps out of the mold they tried to fit her into and builds her own, that's when everything changes. And today we're breaking down exactly what that looks like. If you're ready to tap into that unstoppable energy, make sure to subscribe to The Sigma Lady, because here we don't just embrace our power, we own it. She has spent years being expected to justify her choices. People around her always seem to demand explanations: why she prefers solitude, why she doesn't follow trends, why she doesn't react emotionally like others do. It wasn't enough for her to simply live on her own terms. Society always sought a reason, a rationalization, a way to categorize her into something more understandable. But one day, something shifts. She realizes that her life does not require narration. She does not owe anyone an explanation for the way she moves, thinks, or exists. And so she stops explaining. She stops giving reasons. She stops feeling the need to justify her independence to those who will never truly understand it. The moment she makes this decision, the people around her feel unsettled. They have relied on her to be predictable, to be accommodating, to be available for their questions and doubts. They expected her to answer when they prodded, to offer them insight into the mind they never truly took the time to understand. Now, that access is revoked. Her silence is not passive, it is a statement. It declares that she no longer plays the game of forced social conformity. She does not feel the need to explain why she declines invitations, why she walks away from conversations, why she doesn't engage in meaningless small talk. She does not explain why she is comfortable in her own company, why she does not seek validation, why she is perfectly fine without being part of a group. And this is where the panic sets in. Those who are used to controlling others through expectations begin to feel powerless. They realize they can no longer guilt her into changing. They cannot manipulate her into offering explanations just to make them feel comfortable. The usual tactics, pressure, shame, even subtle emotional coercion, lose their power. She has become unpredictable in their eyes, but in reality she is simply living on her own terms, free from the need to conform. There is something profoundly unsettling to others when a woman stops explaining herself. It disrupts the social balance they have come to rely on. They can no longer define her, and this makes them uneasy. When she stops explaining, she takes back control of the narrative. She moves quietly, purposefully, in a way that forces people to reassess their own expectations of her. She no longer allows them to dictate how she should present herself, what she should prioritize, or how she should respond to the world around her. She does not argue. She does not justify. She does not waste her breath trying to convince people to understand. Instead, she lets her actions speak. And in that silence, there is a power greater than words. This is where people start to truly take notice. They see the shift, and they either adjust or they are left behind. She is no longer bending to fit into the spaces others have created for her. She is carving her own path, with or without their approval, and when she does this, she unlocks a new level of freedom. She no longer carries the weight of expectations that were never hers to bear. She does not feel the burden of making others comfortable at her own expense. She simply exists, fully, freely, unapologetically, and that That is when she becomes truly unstoppable. She has always been a giver, though never in the loud, performative way that many expect. Her generosity is quiet, her support unwavering, her presence a steady foundation for those around her. She listens without interruption, understands without judgment, and offers guidance without expecting anything in return. People come to her because she is the one who always seems to have the answers, the one who carries the emotional weight of others without complaint. But she is also observant. She notices patterns, even when others think she is unaware. She recognizes when her presence is valued versus when it is merely convenient. She can see when people take more than they give, when they expect her to be available but are never there when she needs support in return. There comes a point when she has had enough, not because she is angry or bitter, but because she understands the value of her own energy. She realizes that not everyone deserves access to her mind, her presence, her time, and so, without warning, she pulls back. It is not a grand announcement. There are no confrontations, no dramatic speeches, no ultimatums. She simply recalibrates. She no longer responds to calls immediately. She does not engage in conversations that drain her. She stops offering advice to those who never take it. At first, people do not notice. They assume she is just busy, distracted, preoccupied with something temporary. But then, time passes. The usual responses are no longer there. The comfort of knowing she will always be available begins to fade. And that's when they start to feel it, the emptiness where her presence used to be. People who once relied on her for emotional validation now feel the loss of her support. Those who took her for granted now realize they had been leaning on someone who never truly needed them in the first place. They struggle to understand what changed, unaware that the shift happened long before they even noticed. But for her, this change is liberating. She no longer feels responsible for carrying the weight of others at her own expense. She has redirected that energy inward, pouring into herself what she once gave so freely to others. She does not do this to punish anyone. She does not harbor resentment. She simply understands that her peace is more valuable than being constantly available to those who do not appreciate it. Her detachment is not cruel, it is necessary. And once she makes this decision, she never looks back. For years, she has tolerated superficial connections. She engaged in conversations that felt forced, attended social events she didn't care about, and maintained relationships that were nothing more than a facade. But she was never truly satisfied with these shallow interactions. Deep down, she always knew that true connections required something more than surface-level exchanges. She was looking for authenticity, genuine bonds with people who saw her for who she truly was, not for who they expected her to be. Yet, for a long time, she put her own needs aside. She smiled politely at friends who only reached out when it was convenient for them. She participated in group activities not because they brought her joy, but because it was what was expected of her. She allowed herself to be pulled in all directions, trying to please everyone, all the while feeling a deep sense of disconnection. One day, something inside her shifts. It is not a dramatic realization, but rather a quiet knowing that she deserves more than this. She deserves authenticity. She deserves connections that nourish her soul, not drain her energy. She deserves to surround herself with people who value her for who she is, not just for what she can offer. And so she makes the decision to stop pretending. She stops answering texts and calls from people who only reach out when they need something. She no longer participates in group activities that leave her feeling empty. She lets go of the toxic relationships that have been draining her spirit. And at first, the people around her don't understand. They are used to her being there, always the supportive friend, the reliable one, the person who never says no. They take her presence for granted. But when she pulls away, they feel it. And it's not just her absence they feel, it's the truth behind it. They realize that they have not been offering her the same level of respect or care that she has given them. They realize that the connection was never mutual, that it was always one-sided, with her giving while they simply took. And the best part, she doesn't need to say a word. She doesn't need to explain herself or offer any justifications. She simply begins to walk away from people and situations that no longer serve her. She becomes selective with her energy, choosing to invest it only in relationships that are deep, meaningful, and reciprocal. At first, there may be a sense of loss, an adjustment period for those who were used to her constant presence. But for her, this shift is empowering. She's no longer weighed down by the expectations and emotional burdens of those who never truly appreciated her. She now makes space for the people who see her, respect her, and offer the same level of care she freely gives. And when she does this, the right people, those who value authenticity, mutual respect, and true connection, begin to rise to the surface. They understand the shift, and they meet her where she is. She no longer seeks validation from those who can't offer her the same in return. She no longer sacrifices herself for relationships that were never meant to be. And this newfound clarity, this selective energy, makes her even more magnetic than ever before. She understands that true connections are rare, and she doesn't have the time or energy to waste on anything less. For far too long she made exceptions. She gave second chances. She adjusted her boundaries to accommodate others. She allowed people to come and go, to take what they needed, to push her limits, all because she believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. She wanted to see the good in them, to believe they would one day return the same energy she was offering. But the reality was different. Every time she bent, every time she excused bad behavior, every time she justified someone's mistreatment, she was teaching them that they could overstep without consequences. She was teaching them that she would always be there, no matter how little they gave in return. Then, one day, something inside her shifts. She looks around and realizes that she has been giving more than she receives. She has been offering time, energy, and emotional labor to people who wouldn't do the same for her. And she decides, no more. Now she has standards, and they are not up for debate. They are not flexible. They are not something she will adjust to make someone else feel comfortable. She does not explain them. She does not apologize for them, and she does not make exceptions. Her time is valuable. Her energy is sacred. If someone wants to be part of her world, they have to rise to meet her level. She will no longer lower herself for anyone, and as soon as she enforces these standards, something fascinating happens. The people who truly respect her, who genuinely care, they rise to meet her expectations. They show up fully, they bring their best selves, and they prove that they are worthy of her presence. The ones who only wanted her when it was convenient, the ones who expected her to continue tolerating their inconsistency, they fall away. They can no longer manipulate her into accepting less than she deserves. She's not cold, she's not harsh, she's not unkind. She is simply aware of her worth, of her value, of the level of respect and effort she deserves. And once she embraces this mindset, she never settles again. She no longer wastes time hoping people will change. She no longer gives endless chances to those who repeatedly disappoint her. She no longer compromises her peace for the sake of maintaining relationships that were never meant to last. She stands firm, unwavering, fully in her power, and in doing so, she attracts only those who are strong enough to stand beside her. Sigma ladies. When a Sigma female reclaims her power, everything changes. She no longer explains, no longer bends, no longer compromises her standards. She simply moves through the world as her truest, most authentic self, without apology, without hesitation. And in doing so, she forces the world to adjust to her, not the other way around. If you've ever felt this shift, if you've ever stepped into your power and refused to settle, share your experience in the comments. Let's create a space where Sigma energy is understood, respected, and celebrated. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sigma Lady, because here we don't follow the rules, we redefine them. Until next time, stay powerful, stay intentional, and most importantly, stay untouchable.